Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome to Chat. Uh, where we talk about empathy, innovation, and employment every Wednesday at 2 o'clock with some of the leaders, thought leaders from the disability community, autism world, some of the staffing industry. And in today's case, today's guest is Ajit Dodani, who has a very unique um, a title which I was intrigued by. He's the CEO and an empathy strategist at Empathyify. With that, Ajit, welcome to the show,
Thank you.
and tell our viewers what is the empathy strategist means. As you know, at Rangam, empathy drives innovation. I talk about empathy every Wednesday and pretty much almost every day, every hour. But this is something very unique and new. So tell us what is that?
Well, Nish, I want to thank you for inviting me. I mean, I've observed you from a distance and a fan of your work, so thank you for having me here. Well, you're not the first person. Just yesterday, actually, somebody called us and he said, "What the flippity flip is an empathy strategist?" And I have to answer this question all the time. And Nish, basically, by professional training, I've been in the finance field and I've been in business and finance for years. And for years, I'd go into organizations as a CFO and I'd deploy financial and organizational strategies. But what I found was deep inside me, I'm an empath, right? I can feel more, sense more, understand more. And I would deploy what's called an empathy strategy, very specifically, deliberately build a community within the organizations that I worked in. And what I saw happening with that is as the culture grew, the relationships grew, the organization started to scale almost sustainably. And once the people felt more comfortable, the connections, the fabric of the organization was stronger. And that's when I realized, and I was reading various books at that point, I realized that this is a strategy. And for years, I continued to do that. And we've seen not only culture improve, not only have we seen productivity go up, and the bottom line comes, I'm sure somebody out there is wondering, is this just kumbaya? We saw profits go up. We saw new divisions start. We saw innovation grow. So for me, it has been, so that's why it's an empathy strategy. It's not, you can't leave that out of a formula today.
No, that is so amazing. And I know in your profile you talk about how you empower leaders to use empathy as a superpower to drive personal and organizational success. One of the, just totally side note, I wanted to share, and you mentioned something as organization scale up, right? At Rangam, I always highlight this, that the culture of empathy at Rangam, which is constantly driving innovation. So empathy drives innovation every day. And one of my personal fear has been, as we grow, as we scale up the organization, how do we preserve that culture of empathy? Just a thoughts, it's just random thought came to my mind, and I thought, let me just run by you and get your advice on that.
I think it's not everybody's going to buy it. The way I look at empathy in an organization is like you have empathy ninjas, you have empathy masters, and I work around those fields, right? So these are what we would call in the corporate world entrepreneurs. These are people that understand it. So I'll give you my story, right? When I was young, I would feel more, sense more, and people around me would say, "You need to toughen up, boy. You need to be, and I realized that, why do I need to do that? I could still be a very productive person, but also lean into my empathy. And for those of you who are empaths on this call, I mean, today I run two organizations on the framework of empathy, one in education and the other in the corporate world. So the idea is to find these entrepreneurs and empower them. And the ripple effect of their behavior suddenly starts flowing. I don't need everybody in the organization to buy in, Niche. I just need my small 20% to buy in. That's it. The rest of them, when they see the other people having more fun, collaborating more, not going to lunches by themselves, they're like, something is missing in me. Or when the leader is celebrating something and he's having to celebrate by himself rather than the whole team coming in, suddenly realizes maybe I need to look into building my community better. So I'm not looking for everybody to buy in. If I can just impact a few people in an organization, the ripple effect is just great.
Amazing, amazing. So that means I just, as long as I maintain 20, 30, 40% of the team members preserve that empathetic approach towards solving the problem, towards looking at the things in empathetic way, through that, solve the problem of customers and, processes and whatever growth related challenges, we are in good shape. So thank you for sharing. So let me continue. So I know so tell us a little bit about your organization, Empathyify. Just every word is like very unique in your profile, and I was intrigued, and I said I must talk to you in this show and talk about empathy. So tell us a little bit about Empathyify.
Correct. So thank you. I know our empathy strategist and empathify you are big words but they're simply our goal is to empathify you, is to create that framework of empathy. And my personal work around this comes from a few different things. And if it's okay with you, Nish, I'll just show you some books. Yeah. So there are, empathy. I've been in the space for years, and my work is an intersection of empathy, covering, post-traumatic growth, and the concept of playing finite and infinite games, right? So these 4 books, and if I just show the books, this is the Finite and Infinite Games by James Kars. This is Covering by Kenji. If you read these books, and then obviously you have the work of post-traumatic growth, which comes from Tedeschi from University of North Carolina, Charlotte. The intersection of all of this created EmpathifyU. For years, I was reading different elements, and I realized that as we go into an organization, in order to create a fabric that is unified, we have to create a culture where people don't have to cover when they show up to work, where people can show up as their full self. And you cannot show up as your full self unless you feel safe, unless you don't have to cover, unless you feel you're connected to the community. And strategically, why is that important? So there's the empathy, the software. Strategically, why is that important? It's like what you said, right? So if I can build a relationship, I can increase trust, I can increase communication, I can increase collaboration, and like your organization, increase innovation, I can increase profitability. Yeah. On the other side, if I don't, as EmpathifyU, as we don't create this culture of empathy, even if you let a slight amount of incivility live in our organizations, Nish, we pay the price for it. Just one leader behaving with incivility, the ripple effect cost organizations hundreds and hundreds of thousands of that. Christine Borak did a great article in HBR that talks about the cost of incivility. And as I studied all of this, I realized that there is an important element at the core, which is empathy, but has to be linked with all of these other elements that allow us to very specifically and deliberately change organization cultures, make people more human. This is not human resources. These are human people and human stories showing up to work, Nish. And we have to allow those stories into our workplace and let them thrive. And if they can be proud and show up bold, we win as a country, as a nation, as a world.
Love it, love it, love it, love it. Oh my God, so amazing, amazing. Now, Ajit, I know you have a very unique and very diverse career path which you have built yourself, from C-level executive for United Colors of Benetton as a CFO, to Empathyify CEO. Tell us how that journey, how what happened.
You know, a lot of people, I think I was talking to you earlier and I was telling you how Steve Wozniak has supposed to have said this. It says, it's not binary. You can be decent and a genius too at the same time. And I've had the fortune of working with a few people. Two of them I can think of is Andrea and Dave, that were just amazing people that were extremely brilliant and geniuses, but at the same time, very human. And I saw the loyalty, the love, and how people would go through walls for them. And so that was during my working career. And I was alongside them, working alongside them in the C-suite, and we were impacting change. And as I realized that, it is not binary. You don't need to have an empathy strategy or profitability. It is unique. So during my finance career, those experiences kind of gave me that lens into how can you be decent and how can you be empathy and how can you also be very strategic at the same time. So as I went down the path, what happened was 2020 happened. And for years, I had to, it was my, Nish, I told you, it was my moment of obligation. Because, I can serve one organization and serve 20, but today I'm blessed. I get to serve thousands of people through channels. And when organizations like yours choose to put a highlight and a spotlight on empathy, and you saw the article that Google just put out that says empathy is the skill of the future, the whole world called me, and it was my moment of obligation. I had two options at that point, Nish, as an entrepreneur, to say, you know what, I'm going to take the safe route and stay, I'm doing good. But you know what? I had to do what's right. And it's been such a beautiful journey. I've done this work for decades now, but to lean into it and to go out there and get invited to tables that we've never been invited to before. And today, like we had the industrial revolution, the technology revolution. Today, Nish, I believe we're in the empathy revolution.
Excellent. 100% agree. And the way, Ajit, I see, and correct me how if I'm as a CFO, right? The world of CFO is more black and white, 1+1, and from that world to world of colorful world of empathy. Empathy is, as we know, and I think in my view, it's not that cut and dry. It is very complex. So tell me how you see and how do you explain this to leaders and how do you get their buy-in, going from black and white to the colorful world of empathy?
I think the only way they buy in, Nish, you and I know this, is when they see money. Right. So I spend a lot of time talking to board members.
CFO talking now.
That's the CFO talking, right? So I have to put on my CFO hat. And let me talk a little bit of the finance industry. For those of you in the finance industry, and Nish, you know this more, the level of toxicity in the finance industry, the level of very black and white, no gray, and because that's what we're trained to do, right? Yes. Mm-hmm. And when we saw that, I remember one of the leaders telling one of my coworkers in one of the reviews, and I happened to be sitting in, and he goes, "Well, this is who I am. This is who I operate, and you need to learn how to work with me." This is the boss telling his employee, and I'm going, "Are you kidding me?" And then what I saw, and I can only I say this, I'm not a theorist. I'll just tell you what happened in my life. Mm-hmm. As I developed teams over my years of working with different people, I would pour into everybody just as I would pour into my family. I'd get to know them. I'd start with micro stories, tell them a little bit about myself. I'd see if they want to open up. And that relationship grew a little bit more. So this is now in the finance industry. So very cut and dry. We're all matching KPIs and everything like that. I started sharing stories. Slowly, the vulnerability grew. The moral fabric of my team started to grow. And Nish, I remember an organization that I worked in. I was running a division. It was a client of mine, and there was a separate division, another part of the country that was running the same finance division. And the people that I worked alongside, these were people that reported to me, my team, they were staying late night, having fun, sending messages. That same deadline was in another team, and everybody's complaining to the boss, "I don't want to show up. I don't want to do it." Why? Because when an orange is squeezed, orange juice comes out. When a lemon is squeezed, lemon juice comes out. So if in your organization you've spent time pouring love and empathy, and that organization goes through pressure during deadlines, orange juice is coming out. If you got lemon juice, it's going to be lemon. So whatever is inside, when the pressure comes in, is going to come out. So as a finance professional, I saw that. And when I saw that, I said, it is, I have to do something more about it. This is not just has to be contained in one organization. And that's how it impacts the finance. And I love talking to finance people. I go into board meeting and they're like, and literally, Nish, it's funny. Like we'll have a Zoom call like this, and the board members are sitting there, and they're like, so you're an empathy strategist, like, good for you, now what I'll do before I talk to them, I'll send them the Google article, right? But
Yeah.
anyway, I show up there and I tell them, I said, oh, okay, so tell me a little bit about your culture. And they'll say, yeah, we're doing great. We have huddles every morning. We do happy hours every day. True story of a client. Oh, happy hour every day. That's awesome. How many people? Oh, we have about 40, 50 people and all. How many people show up for your events? 4, 8. What do you guys do? Oh, we just chit chat about work. And I explained to them how when you deliberately build a culture of empathy and storytelling, how those moments are not just check boxes that we have to do, especially in the middle of the pandemic, especially when we're working from home. They're very strategic. And I go down exactly how I would change their systems. I said, by the way, so if you're not doing this, based on what I'm understanding, you probably have about 2 or 3 employees, big company, 2 or 3 employees that are probably in civil. Do you know how much that's costing you? They'll go, I said, it's costing you about $120,000. I have a math for it. $120,000. And they're like, wait, what are you saying? Just 3 employees, I'm losing $120,000? Yeah, and by the way, because your employees are not contributing and they're not fully engaged, because they cannot show up as their full self, that because of your lack of innovation, you're probably losing between $500,000 to $1 million on new innovation, new ideas. Oh, and by the way, because your employees are slightly upset over the incivility of them, they're not treating their customers right. Oh, and by the way, that's costing you money because you're not getting reorders. And all of a sudden, Nish, when it hurts their bottom line, I'm either invited for a keynote, workshops, coaching for their CEO, whatever be the case that they're looking for to solve. But it's in the end, a lot of them have to have. But all I keep saying is, it is not binary. You can have both. You can have empathy. You can have profitability. You can have a great culture. It takes work, but it's doable.
That is so true. And this is truly, we, in our world of disability inclusion, Ajit, we face very similar challenges, and we'll change gears a little bit in that area. I would like to get your thoughts, but real quick, I personally and the leadership at Rangam, we experience what you just mentioned, that empathetic approach, and with the lemon, you get the lemon juice. Exact same experience when we say we have empathetic approach, and we communicate, we share, and we build and sustain that culture. We have experienced exact same thing, that late working hours with the tight deadlines, and some of this great work ethics, and they believe in the organization, right? That's the empathetic culture. And when we build that, and that's a beautiful thing. And the beautiful another huge benefit I see, that empathetic culture, we celebrate small successes together, and that gives like 100 times more energy than before. And it's just beautiful, that constant cycle, and endless energy is flowing within the organization. So I 100% agree with you on that. Your thoughts on empathy and disability inclusion, because I'm pretty sure you must have some theory or thoughts and strategy behind that. And what is your take on that?
Yeah, this if there's one person in this entire audience that can understand this today, it could possibly transform yourself and your organization.
Yeah.
When you work with people with different abilities, what you need to spend time on understanding is this concept of covering. We all cover. As for a long time, as a brown man, I had a Starbucks name. My name is Ajit, and I had a Starbucks name called AJ, and that was covering, right? And we change our names to cover. We change our behavior to cover. And so there are two things. We change a non-normally accepted behavior of mine that are people in power to cover myself. People that have different ethnicities, different abilities, disabilities, spend, listen to this very carefully, please, anybody in the audience, 40% of their mental power trying to cover them. Wow. What if we could create a culture where their entire identity, be it any different ability that they have, that they can show in and say, by the way, I just want to let you know, this is my different ability. I'm dyslexic. I'm going to tell you that. I'm not going to try to hide that. Do you know how empowering that is? The whole concept of covering exists in our organization with the multiracial communities that we have within our workforces. We, people in power, need to be really careful of what words we use and how we behave and how this makes our employees cover themselves. In order to unleash the power of it, first we have to get them to understand covering, but most importantly, we need to understand, because the people in power here, and most of your people, I saw their profiles, they own some very strong positions. I'm going to ask you, what do you cover? Can you start uncovering a portion of your life so that people in your group get comfortable to uncover their portion and show up as their true, honest, real self? And imagine if all of us from 60%, we can go up to 80, 90. We will not totally uncover at any given time. But imagine if we could tap into that 30%. Nish, our organizations would blossom. But we, people in power, sometimes say things, do things, smirk, pass a joke, make a comment about a clothes, make a comment about somebody's food and how it smells. Or we tell somebody, oh, you have this name, Shruti. Do you have an anglicized name for it? No. If you can learn all the names of Games of Thrones, you can learn the names of everybody in the world. I'm passionate about this, Nish. I'm so passionate.
I can see it. I can feel it. I can hear that in every word you are saying. So, Ajit, thank you for sharing this. And I truly means the way I see, I was just thinking that at Rangam, we've been talking about empathy and empathetic culture because it was from our gut, right? And that's what we believe in. But what you have done is really convert and build a strategy and build a framework around this, which is, driven by multiple theories. So that is just amazing. Amazing. I love it. Love it. Love it.
Thank you.
So changing the gears a little bit, within organization empathetic approach, but there is a whole another area or benefit of or taking the empathetic approach while working or solving the problems of customers. So now we all know in this new world, a problem without, we selling has a science, has a very complex science behind it. How do you see the empathy playing a role in the world of sales and marketing and serving the customers?
It's Nish. I've developed about 50 questions, and these are branding questions, right? And I love this exercise that I do with the company, the CEO himself, the employees, and then finding out about their customer to identify truly what is the customer story. For those of you on the call who understand Agile, you know the concept of customer story. And what is the customer story? And you know what? There are so many times that the true empathy is about active listening. And active listening is about listening to be changed by others. Those that are stubborn will say, I will try to sell you this. But if you listen to the customer and there are lots of platforms, we don't have the time to go through it right now, not a platform that you can truly understand that customer and deep empathy, you can completely transform your branding, your marketing, your business strategy. And I've been just blessed because that ability to actively listen. I spend a lot of time coaching startups and entrepreneurs doing that. And that is so fun, Nish. And I don't have a background in it. The only thing I have, Nish, very humbly, is that deep level of active listening and understanding. And I've been blessed with the ability to connect some dots. And then as I listen, as I hear multiple stories, and if you do it very strategically across an organization, you can find those common stories. And it's very prescriptive, it is very strategic,
Yeah.
but it can transform your product line and, those of you interested, your bottom line.
Yes, yes. So in my world of work, I call this empathetic circle of innovation.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a journey from 2007 to today, how we have tackled and taken each and every component of person on the autism spectrum conditions or any other visible or invisible disabilities, and through that journey we've been tackling like some of the most critical challenges by either building the product or a technology and all that. And it has been amazing journey, and now we are focusing on the employment for people on the autism spectrum through our sourceable platform. My question to you is that journey was very challenging, and in the world of innovation and in world of entrepreneurship, right, they always talk about you pick and choose what you want to do in order to be successful, and so that we can take it to the finish line. So when you are empathetic, do you believe in over empathetic or concept? I don't
Yeah.
know, some people thought that how do you manage that empathy?
So along with empathy, I teach about 4 quadrants, and one of them is accountability. Because if you
Yeah.
don't have empathy with accountability, I work with nonprofits and various organizations where the empathy level is so high that the accountability is low. And my goal is with EmpathifyU to build a nonprofit, profit brands that are as popular as the Coke and the Pepsis in the world, right? And the only way you can do that is if you have an amazing idea and you tie it up with accountability, right? So it is a key. If there's an article on my LinkedIn, you can go, for those interested, you can read. I talk about that. I wrote an article, Too Much Sugar in My Chai. And the too much sugar was too much empathy. So it is a problem, Nish.
Love
But
it.
can I just bring this to how we solve for now, right?
Yeah.
We're all dealing with this pandemic, right? So how does this apply to where we are right now? Okay, so we went through 2020. We had the pandemic. We had a social-political trauma.
Yeah.
The organizations were shattered. We had financial loss. We had personal loss for people, right?
Yeah.
So collectively, we've gone through, and please respectfully hear this word. We've gone through a collective trauma. We as a world have gone through a collective trauma. And when you go through a collective trauma, you have something called PTSD. Now, I said I'm not a theorist. So years ago, I had a personal incident where I went through PTSD. And I came out of it from the theory of post-traumatic growth. That's the Dr. Tedeschi's work. He talks about the framework of that is the way you get out of trauma without getting prescription, because we've, as a collective community, gone through it. So how do you lead after a traumatic year or 18 months that it's going to be? These are the steps around post-traumatic growth: empathy, relationships, gratitude, education, problem solving, service. And what I always want to throw is how many people can you allow for them to show up uncovered at work? Because if you can help your organization come out of this last, so far 15 months, and we're going to go into 18 months, and you understand this. See, for years, Nish and I were talking earlier, for years, we were like, oh, okay, if we get to it, we'll get to it. I just want to let you know, as I said earlier, the digital revolution is done. This is the empathy revolution. And if you don't believe it, go check out Google right now. I keep saying that because some of you are Go ahead, Nish.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Empathy is the skill of the future, as per the chief innovation evangelist at Google. What are your thoughts? Tell us. This is, and it's amazing. This came out in February of 2021. So just a recent article. And what are your thoughts?
Let me tell you. So we've been teaching through the education side of the work that I do. We've been teaching empathy in school. So I've been doing empathy work for 2 decades now. When I have to say the word empathy, they go, thank you very much. That's really nice. Kumbaya, kumbaya. It is not the future. It is now. For everybody listening, I challenge you to embrace this concept that leaders like Nish and organizations like Rangam are putting in their forefront. They could use this podium to talk about anything and they would get people showing up. But they're choosing to talk about empathy because science, research, financial data, everything says that empathy is now. An empathy strategy is needed now, not in the future. I love Google. Thank you for acknowledging our work for the last 20 years. But Nish, the moment for us is now. We as empaths, we as people been talking and screaming about empathy. Right now, we're the first thing that goes into organizations, because coming out of this 2020 trauma, if you go in there and you go business as usual, just let's go keep on, you are not going to last. It's not sustainable because your people are hurt and hurting. And if they've been through trauma, and if we as leaders don't embrace these frameworks of bringing them in, helping them uncover, helping them build that relationship, we may not get our organizations to the level we want to ever again. So I highly encourage you now, Nish, the time is now.
Empathy is now. Love it. My tagline in some of my presentations, I have used the time is now. The time is now. Now I have a new tagline, new slogan, empathy now. Or what is that? Empathy is now? What
Empathy is now.
Empathy is now. Love it. Love it. So this article, in fact, is talking about what you just summarized. Empathy is now a major skill needed in growing an innovative mindset in an organization as it helps business leaders come up with better solution. So this is exactly what so it's not just a leader, it's a whole entire organization that is going to be needed. It must have skill in coming years.
And Nish, I tell you this, but a lot of times, people say, oh, empathy is not learned, you're born with it. I have good news and bad news. It's a skill. It can be learned, and it's very deliberate, and you can learn it. And the most difficult folks in the world, I've seen them transform personally. Their marriages transform, their relationship with their kids transform. When they learn the skills of empathy, their organizations thrive. They feel like going to work finally because they have relationships there. So it's a skill. Because there are a lot of people that say, no, empathy, you're born with. No, it's a skill. Nish learned it. I learned it.
Absolutely, absolutely. For me, my empathy T-shirt is my uniform during this COVID time, and I'm going to continue wearing this forever. Now, this is my favorite T-shirt. I have any piece of clothes I have worn in my life, and this is what I love. So I would love to see your picture with the empathy T-shirt as soon as you get that in the mail. Let me know when you get it. But thank you so much. We went over by 3 minutes, almost 4 minutes. But amazing conversation, amazing energy. Love it, love it, love it. Ajit, really, thank you for doing some amazing work for the whole world and leaders whom we really want to implement some of your strategies and framework and make the organization better for all of us. So thank you for doing great work, and thank you for your time.
Thank you for the invite, and thank you for using your podium to spread this message. For people like us, it makes a huge difference that Rangam chooses to focus on a word like empathy when you could choose. So really, really appreciate it. Thank you. And the friendship we've developed, Nish, really, really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ajit. And thank you everyone for joining. Sorry, we went a little over today. We will continue our conversation next week, Wednesday, same time, same place. Till then, Stay safe and healthy, and thank you, everyone. Bye
Thank
bye.
you all.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.